This book is from right in the middle of the Great Depression, and it's still selling millions of copies. It's still changing lives and sitting on the nightstands and desks of CEOs and dreamers alike. Decoding Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and it's not just about money, it's about the invisible architecture of success itself, the mental patterns that separate people who dream from people who do. And honestly, it might just rewire how you think about thinking itself. This book was first published in 1937, and it is one of the best-selling self-help books of all time, with over 100 million copies sold worldwide. It laid the actual groundwork for the entire personal development industry and influenced everyone from W. Clement Stone to Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins. So Napoleon Hill, born in 1883, died in 1970. This guy grew up dirt poor in a one-room cabin in Virginia. His mom unfortunately died when he was 9, and by his account, he was a handful. He called himself a mountain devil. Now, his stepmother really saw something special in him, and so she went out and got him a typewriter, and boom, he became a writer. Now, here's where it gets interesting, okay? At age 25, Hill interviewed Andrew Carnegie, one of the wealthiest men in America at the time, who challenged Hill to 20 years of studying successful people, go figure out what they have in common, and create a philosophy of achievement that anyone can use, okay? No pay, just the opportunity. And guess what he said? Obviously, he said yes. And so over the next 2 decades, he interviewed over 500 people, including Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Theodore Roosevelt, John D. Rockefeller, Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the phone and has the same birthday as me. He was basically collecting the source code of success directly from the people who built modern America, okay? He also was a political advisor. He worked for President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and at one point he was so broke that he had to start over multiple times before Think and Grow Rich finally took off. This man lived what he wrote about, okay? Failure, persistence, faith, all of it. And his core philosophy: success is a service. There are principles, and if you apply them with definiteness of purpose and persistence, you can achieve anything. He believed in the power of thought, autosuggestion, and what he called infinite intelligence, a kind of universal creative force that you could tap into. Think and Grow Rich came out in 1937 and was immediately a hit. The book distills 20 years of research into 13 principles of achievement. He uses tons of stories, and he talks about burning desire, about writing down your goals, and about the invisible forces that respond to your thoughts. It's part psychology, part spirituality, part practical strategy, okay? Side note is that he first wrote The Law of Success in 1928. It was a massive 8-volume course that became the foundation to Think and Grow Rich. He also wrote The Master Key to Riches, 45, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude, that he co-authored with W. Clement Stone in 1960, and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind in 1967. However, Think and Grow Rich obviously remains his most influential and widely read work. At face value, this book is telling you that thoughts are things. If you hold a burning desire, combine it with faith, feed it to your subconscious through repetition, make a plan, persist through obstacles, and tap into a mastermind of like-minded people, you can achieve any goal, especially financial success. Hill is saying you can decide with crystal clarity, write it down, visualize daily, believe it's yours, and take consistent action to get it. Your thoughts literally shape your reality, and that the subconscious mind, when properly directed, becomes a magnet for opportunity. And for him, success isn't luck, it's a formula. He's also really big on the idea that failure is just feedback. It was him that said Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways that didn't work, meaning persistence separates winners from everyone else. And of course, the mastermind principle that he has, which I use for my own mastermind groups, is to surround yourself with people who challenge and elevate you, and you'll access a kind of collective intelligence greater than any individual mind. Okay, so possible misunderstandings. Here's where things can get sticky. Think and Grow Rich is often taken as a mechanical process. Like, if I just visualize hard enough and say affirmations and write my goals down 100 times, the universe will deliver. It can turn into magical thinking where it's like waiting for results without actually changing who you are or how you show up. People may also misunderstand thoughts are things to mean that you can just think your way into wealth without skill, value creation, or real world action. And it can become a kind of spiritual bypassing where you're focusing so hard on the inner work that you're not actually working, right? There's also the risk of interpreting Hill's intensity, his talk of burning desire and obsession. It can be misunderstood as permission to override your body and ignore balance or bulldoze through life. It can become like all hustle and no humanity. And let's be honest, the book was written in 1937 by a man interviewing other men in a very specific cultural moment. It's very man-centric. And so reading it today, it's necessary that you have an open mind, knowing that times were very different back then, especially where women were concerned. Some of the language feels outdated, and the examples, they're pretty homogenous. It's easy to read it and think, this worked for them, but, can it actually work for me? From where I see it, Think and Grow Rich isn't actually about thinking in the intellectual sense. It's about identity, okay? What Hill is really pointing to is this. The version of you who achieves the goal already exists. The work isn't to force something into being, it's to become the person who that outcome is inevitable for. When he talks about burning desire, he's not talking about wanting something really, really, really hard. He's talking about clarity so deep that it reorganizes your whole nervous system. It's not desperation, it's devotion and a deep knowingness. Faith isn't pretending or hoping. It's the lived experience of already being that person. It's acting from the end, not aiming toward something. You're not trying to convince yourself. It's more like you're remembering. And autosuggestion, that's not just repeating affirmations over and over. It's reprogramming the subconscious through consistent exposure to a new identity. You're not saying, I will be rich. You're saying, I am the kind of person who, and then you live that way until it's just who you are. What I believe is super important here is that Hill understood something that most people miss. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner state, not your thoughts, your state, which is the frequency that you're broadcasting from. People talk about this all the time, but they don't holistically actually do it. The mastermind principle is a genius one because it's not just about networking, it's about nervous system regulation. When you're around people who hold a different baseline of possibility, your system starts to calibrate to that. You're not just getting advice and support, you're downloading a new normal. Okay, what's necessary for integration with Napoleon Hill's book here? So he does touch on integration, and he talks about the subconscious mind. He talks about repetition. He talks about the need to saturate your thinking. He knew information alone doesn't change you, but here's how you actually move this from cool idea to who you actually are. First thing, understand that reading Think and Grow Rich 100 times is not going to make you rich. Memorizing the 13 principles is not going to do it either. This isn't about information collection. It's about identity shift. You have to move from I know this to I am this. It takes change. So let's say you want financial abundance. The question isn't how do I get rich? The question is who is the version of me that already is rich. And then what does that person think? How do they move through the world? What do they believe about themselves? What's their baseline state? Okay. You practice being that person now, not when the money shows up, but now. That means if the wealthy version of you values their time, you start valuing your time right now. If they invest in themselves, you invest in yourself right now. If they're calm, generous, and certain, practice being calm, generous, and certain right now. This is where the nervous system comes in, okay? Your body needs to feel the new identity. If success feels foreign or dangerous, or like it's going to make you lose something or safety, your system will sabotage it every time. You have to acclimate slowly and with repetition. Now, the other piece is awareness. You get to catch yourself slipping back into the old identity, the old stories, the old yeah, but. And when you do, you don't shame yourself, okay? Just redirect again and again and again, okay? Every time you need to. Integration is the practice of choosing the new identity so many times that it becomes automatic. That's when it's embodied, and that's when you're not trying to be successful, you just are successful. And here's a light bulb, all right? You're not waiting to feel worthy when you achieve the goal. You're practicing worthiness now so that the goal has a place to actually land. That's the whole game. Honestly, I just love the audacity of this guy. He says yes to a 20-year unpaid research project on success during a time when most people were barely surviving. He interviewed legends, he synthesized it, and then he gave it all away in a book that probably cost less than $1 when it first came out. And nearly 90 years later, it's still working. It's not perfect, okay? And it doesn't have all the answers, but it points to something very true that we can all achieve. You become what you practice being. That is just timeless and beautiful, and it is so worth honoring, isn't it? I believe in you.